Every hero's journey begins with a decisive moment. A moment when the ordinary man steps out of the familiar and into the unknown. In stories and myths that span across cultures and time, this moment is marked by a call to adventure, a choice that sets the stage for transformation. For many men, semen retention is that modern call. It is the decision to step away from culturally conditioned habits and reclaim inner strength, focus, and purpose. Semen retention begins the hero's rise not just by suppressing urges, but by redirecting the most powerful creative force known to man, a force that shapes not only life but destiny itself. In a world flooded with instant gratification, infinite scrolling, and dopamine-driven distractions, men have forgotten their ancient knowing. The rise of pornography, masturbation addiction, and uncontrolled sexual habits have weakened the energy, discipline, and drive that once defined masculinity. Men feel drained, distracted, unmotivated, and often deeply disconnected from their true selves. The modern man is surrounded by abundance, but faces an inner famine, a famine of purpose, vitality, and direction. This is not because something external was stripped from him, but because something internal has been wasted. The energy that could have fueled ambition is spent in a cycle of mindless release. The creative potential that could have built empires is squandered on screens. The heroic flame that could have burned through limits is dimmed by indulgence. Yet, from this crisis comes a call to rise. And that call often begins with a radical reclaiming, the reclaiming of sexual energy. Through semen retention, the man steps into the unknown, confronts his inner demons, and begins unlocking the hidden elements of his potential. Cultures throughout history have recognized semen as more than biological fluid. It is the essence of life. Ancient yogis called it ajas, a vital energy that nourishes the mind and spirit. Taoist masters believe the essence of vitality and longevity was stored within sexual energy. Even in spiritual disciplines across the world, sexual restraint was seen as a path to heightened awareness and inner power. Science today confirms what ancient sages intuitively taught. Semen contains an immense concentration of DNA, proteins, hormones, neurotransmitters, and life-creating substances. When conserved, this energy is not wasted. It is reabsorbed, recycled, and redirected. It nourishes the brain, strengthens the nervous system, boosts dopamine sensitivity, and builds a foundation for mental clarity and emotional stability. For the modern hero in the making, semen retention is not repression. It is a strategic investment. It is the conservation and redirection of generative force to fuel higher states of being. It is the first step in turning sexual energy into personal power, desire into discipline, fantasy into focus, and instinct into inspiration. In Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, the first stage is the refusal of the call. Many men hear the voice telling them to rise, to change, to become more, yet they turn away. They delay their destiny for another day. They choose comfort over challenge. But the hero chooses differently. He confronts the call, even if afraid, and steps into a higher responsibility. Semen retention is that choice. It is the moment you face your lower nature and say, no more. It is not about rejecting sexuality, but about mastering it. Instead of obeying every impulse, you begin directing your own energy. Instead of being controlled by cravings, you become a conscious creator. The first battles happen in the mind. The cravings, the urges, the old habits, they rise like dragons of the subconscious, testing your resolve. The journey begins with conquest of self, and the victory is not just in abstinence, but in transformation. Every day of retention becomes a step away from weakness and a step toward power. Every victory fuels momentum. Every moment of discipline plants the seeds for greatness. What happens when a man commits to retention? Almost immediately, he begins to feel the return of life force. Energy, once wasted, now builds within. The fog lifts from mind. The emotional instability begins to settle. His eyes become clearer. His posture straighter. His choices stronger. One of the first gifts retention gives is enhanced focus. No longer lost in sexual cravings or dopamine crashes, the mind sharpens. Attention becomes more manageable. Work becomes easier. Ideas become more accessible. The man begins waking up with purpose rather than lethargy. Retention also boosts testosterone, but more importantly, it restores inner masculinity. It reconnects a man with his ambition, drive, and confidence. As the energy circulates and stays within the body, it empowers expression, assertiveness, and creativity. The man begins to feel like a warrior reborn, no longer enslaved to his lower impulses. The alchemy of transmutation. Semen retention isn't just about holding in. It's about transforming. The hero does not hoard his energy. He channels it toward a mission. In ancient alchemy, the process of turning lead into gold symbolized inner transformation. Sexual energy is the lead, powerful but raw. Transmutation turns that energy into gold. Creativity, spiritual awareness, discipline, and higher purpose. This process begins with intention. The retained energy cannot be allowed to stagnate. It must move. The hero channels this energy into art, business, fitness, spiritual practice, leadership, and service. The sexual force becomes a creative fire that fuels his ascent. Men who practice transmutation report enhanced charisma, improved intuition, heightened perception, and increased presence. They stop looking at life passively. They engage. They speak with conviction. They act with authority. They become magnetic, not because they seek validation, but because they operate from an overflowing store of internal power. No heroic rise is without its trials. The path of retention is no different. Old patterns attack. Temptations arise. The mind rebels. The body tests your resolve. You are forced to see your shadow, the parts of yourself you used to avoid through pleasure, distraction, or denial. Semen retention exposes your weaknesses, insecurities, and emotional wounds. It forces you to feel what you previously numbed. This is where many give up and return to old habits, escaping back into fleeting pleasure rather than enduring discomfort for inner growth. But the hero understands that pressure forms diamonds, not comfort. He realizes that the energy saved must now be used to conquer the inner demons: fear, shame, addiction, laziness. He understands that the psychological battle is as important as the physical one. He commits to using every urge as fuel, every temptation as a test, and every challenge as a chance to grow stronger. As the hero continues, something profound happens. He begins to embody a regal presence, not through dominance over others, but through mastery of self. He no longer chases validation. He does not seek to impress. He moves with purpose and confidence because he is no longer fragmented inside. His gaze deepens. His silence has power. His words carry weight. His aura affects rooms before he speaks. This presence cannot be faked. It is earned through the discipline of knowing who he is and refusing to betray that truth for momentary desires. Women sense it. Opportunities gravitate toward it. The world responds differently to a man who radiates stored, integrated sexual power. The king energy, rooted, sovereign, and steady, begins to emerge. The heroic rise isn't just about self-improvement. It's about integration. A man who masters his sexual energy is no longer split in intention. He becomes unified, grounded, and unstoppable. Retention teaches a vital lesson. The energy you save must serve something greater. The hero's rise is incomplete if it remains selfish. The ultimate purpose of this inner energy is to serve a mission, one that empowers others, heals the world, or builds something lasting. Many men discover their creative calling during retention. They write, paint, lift, invest, mentor, invent, or lead. The energy once thrown away in private moments becomes fuel for public greatness. The hero does not hide his power. He shares it. He inspires others not by lecturing, but by embodying what's possible. Semen retention awakens clarity about what matters. Your path becomes visible. You begin attracting opportunities and mentors. You see your potential instead of your problems. And with your energy intact, you finally have the life force necessary to take consistent action toward your dreams. Every hero's journey ultimately leads back to the world, but the man who returns is not the same as the man who left. He returns transformed. He returns able to give what he could not give before. His presence becomes a lighthouse for others lost in the storm. His strength becomes inspiration. His example becomes a roadmap. Retention is not the journey, it's the doorway. But it is the doorway many never walk through. It is the beginning of reclaiming the creative force that once built civilizations. It is the beginning of reshaping what it means to be a man in a world that has forgotten masculinity's sacred origin. When a hero rises, he becomes more than just a better version of himself. He becomes a symbol. He becomes an example of what every man can achieve when he takes control of the forces within him. Semen retention begins the hero's rise, not because it is the destination, but because it is the foundation. It is the first strike in the battle for your potential. It is the reclaiming of energy, focus, determination, and creativity. It is the decision to stop leaking your power and start building your kingdom. The world is waiting for men who rise, not in domination, but in consciousness. The world needs heroes whose discipline becomes inspiration, whose struggles become wisdom, and whose journey becomes legacy. The path will be hard. You will face yourself, your cravings, and your shadows. But on the other side of that battle lies a man you've never met, a man you were always meant to be. And it all begins with a single choice: to hold your seed, not just physically, but energetically, and rise from the inside out. That is the beginning of the hero's ascent. And if you choose this path, remember, every day you retain, you rise. Every moment of resistance births strength. Every urge overcome is a step toward your throne. The world is full of men, but the world needs heroes. Be the one who rises. Your journey has already begun. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel.